I recently came across a video from AliciaLynn where she did a Greek yogurt rhubarb coffee cake. It looked delicious, but of course when I went to the store there was no rhubarb. Did I despair? No, I did not. I just changed things up. This is my Greek yogurt blueberry coffee cake, made with just a few changes than what AliciaLynn did. But I'll go over that in the video. And were they all successful? We will find out. So if you'd like to see how this is done, stick around because it's coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I'm a home cook, an amateur baker, and I'm here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Now, yes, I am back in the kitchen. We have not gotten everything fixed around the house, but we have managed to maneuver things so that I can record. Paul is sitting off to the side playing his games quietly, so we have some time together in the kitchen. Now today is not one of my recipes, but I am playing around with it a little bit. I saw a recent video from AliciaLynn where she did a Greek yogurt rhubarb coffee cake. Now I haven't had rhubarb in forever, so I thought that sounded great. So I went to get all of the ingredients, but of course, the supermarket I went to had no rhubarb. So I went with the next best thing and went with some blueberries that were on sale. Now, if I'd thought of it while I was at the store, I could have made this a lemon blueberry coffee cake by getting a lemon, grating it so I had the zest to throw in here, using some of the juice, and that would have been delightful. But blueberry alone is just as good. But you can play around with this. This is what I'm talking about when I tell you to make this your own. Make it with whatever you have on hand. Make it with whatever you can find on sale at the supermarket. If they don't have rhubarb, make something else. Now I will link to AliciaLynn's video down below. She has the recipe written up on her channel. I don't want to copy that over to mine because it's copyrighted once she's put it onto her channel. But you can get the recipe from there. But down below, under the link to her video, I will put down whatever changes I've made. And I am trying to, even though the bites and points weren't bad to begin with, I am trying a little something different to see if I can drop them a little bit more. But I'll go over that in a moment. First, let's go over the ingredients. I have here my cooking spray. She used baking spray, and sometimes I have baking spray on hand, sometimes I don't, but cooking spray should work just fine. Here I have 3 cups of blueberries, and I have rinsed those, and you could, if you wanted, have some extra for the top, but I don't think it's necessary. One thing I am going to do, though, to make sure that this doesn't sink to the bottom of the cake, is I'm going to coat it with a little bit of the flour mixture later. Here I have 2 cups of flour. Now it calls for 2 1/3 cups of flour. The other 1/3 cup is over here. And that is divided because 1 part is for the cake, 1 part is for the topping. And so it's 2 1/3 total. Here I have 1 cup of plain non-fat Greek yogurt, and that is at room temperature. All of these ingredients are at room temperature, especially when you're baking. As I always say, you've heard it a million times, you want your ingredients at room temperature so they will come together more easily. And I'm assuming she based this on a sour cream cake. I believe that's what she had said in her video. And often, if there's sour cream in a recipe, you just swap it out for the non-fat Greek yogurt and you're fine. Here I have 1 cup of sugar replacement divided. Again, 1 part is going into the cake, 1 part is going into the topping. Here I have 2 eggs lightly beaten. I'm not exactly sure why she has you beat them, because typically when you pre-beat an egg, it's because the flour is going to go in with it or near it, so that you don't want to work that flour too much. But this one, we're going to be doing all the wet ingredients together, so I'm not sure why, but I beat it anyway, and that is 2 eggs right there. Here I have 1 cup of unsweetened applesauce. Now, this is one of the places where I was going to try reducing the bites and points, because I was going to use some extra applesauce in the crumb topping. In her recipe, she uses 4 tablespoons of light butter. I believe she uses Brummel and Brown. I use the I Can't Believe It's Not Butter Light, but I wanted to reduce the bites and points if I could. But then thinking about it, I thought applesauce might not be the best solution because there's no fat in it. So it's not going to give the same texture. It may come out a bit tougher than I want it. So what I've done to replace that light butter is 2 egg yolks. And those are at room temperature. And this is totally an experiment. I don't know if that's actually gonna work, but I thought, what could I get that's fat, but doesn't add bites and points, and yolks would definitely do it. I'm just hoping that they will do what I want it to in the recipe, but you can just use the light butter if you prefer. This is gonna reduce it by 1 bite or point, but it's really not bad if you just do the light butter. Here I have 2/3 cup of brown sugar replacement, and that again is divided for the topping and for the cake. Here I have 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Now, as I said, you could have added some lemon zest in here to make this lemon blueberry, but I didn't do that, didn't think ahead. But next time, I think that's what I'll do if I really enjoy this cake. Well, if Paul and I enjoy it. So that's all you're going to need. Let me shuffle a few things around and we'll get started. Okay, to start off with, we're gonna start with the topping, the crumb topping that coffee cakes are known for. And I have a small bowl and just a little fork. To this bowl, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of sweetener, 1/3 cup brown sugar replacement, and I'm gonna mash those 2 together before I add in anything else, just to try to get that blended through a little bit. And it doesn't have to be perfect, you're just trying to get it so that they are merging a little bit in here. And now for the experimental part, I'm going to add 2 egg yolks and mix that in, breaking those yolks up and getting it all combined with the sugar and getting that worked in, kind of like you would if you had butter, you would work that in. 2 egg yolks is only about 2 tablespoons worth of egg, so I think that's going to be enough. But as I said, this is an experiment, but the recipe did call for 1/4 cup of the light butter. But looking at this, the way it's coming together, I think 2 egg yolks is fine, and I actually think this might work. So if this does work well, this is going to be my new way of making a topping that is lower in bites, points, and calories. All right, so to this, I'm going to add 1/3 cup of flour and cinnamon. And then we're just gonna work that all in. The flour is going to help this to clump together a little bit and make those crumbs that the coffee cake is known for. I probably maybe would have wanted a slightly larger bowl, but it's fine, it'll be fine. If I have a spasm now, I'll just have to clean up the counter a little bit. Yeah, that's actually looking pretty good, I think. So I think this is the way I'm gonna be doing crumb toppings from now on. So you just wanna work it until everything's fairly well combined and the flour is moistened, and that looks good right there. So I'm gonna set this aside. I'm going to bring in a medium-sized bowl and a whisk, because now what we're going to do is combine our dry ingredients. 2 cups of flour, salt, and baking soda. Now in her recipe, she does have you add in the sweeteners as well. I'm not gonna do that. I tend to like to add my sweeteners most of the time to the wet ingredients, because that way it incorporates more smoothly. And I think especially with the brown sugar, it's gonna have a little trouble mixing in with the flour, so I'd rather incorporate it into the wet. But for this, I'm just going to whisk these few ingredients together. So that's done. Gonna set this aside, and I'm going to bring in a larger bowl now. So to this larger bowl, I'm gonna add the Greek yogurt, eggs, applesauce, vanilla, 1/2 cup sugar replacement, 1/3 cup brown sugar replacement. And then I'm just going to smash up that brown sugar and get this all whisked together. Now you could do this with a hand mixer if you want. I don't think it's necessary. I mean, if I can do it with my issues, then I'm sure you can do it as well. But I do, now that this is incorporated, I want to add the dry ingredients. But before I do that, as I mentioned, I'm going to add some flour to the blueberries, because what can happen if you don't is it will sink a little bit to the bottom. So I'm just going to add some of that and then just toss them in the flour. And this coating basically just gives it something to cling on when it's going into the batter, so it doesn't sink right to the bottom. If you've ever made like a blueberry cake or anything and all of the blueberries were lined up at the bottom of the cake, that's why they sunk, because there was no resistance to them sinking down. Having the flour on there kind of acts like a little grip so that they won't sink as badly. They may still sink somewhat, but it shouldn't be as dramatic. So move that aside, bring in my wet mixture and add in the flour. Stir that in and get that flour well incorporated in there. And there may be some little lumps in there. You can press those out a little bit, but you also don't have to worry too much. Just like with making pancakes, you don't have to worry. It will hydrate a bit as it goes in, but get as much of that out as you can. That looks good. So now we're going to toss in the blueberries. Scrape out any flour that may be stuck to the bowl, because I did clean off my blueberries. They may have still been a little damp on the bottom, and just toss those through. Now I really do wish I had been able to find some rhubarb, and I will check other stores to see if I can find it, because I do love a rhubarb, especially with strawberries. So that looks pretty good right there. I'm gonna bring in my cake pan, 9x13, which I sprayed with the cooking spray. I love this cake pan. My mother gave it to me as a gift for my birthday, just because she knows I love to bake, or she knew I love to bake. Just gonna pour this in. And I'm going to just even that out a little bit. Sometimes I will make a little divot in the center, because the center does tend to dome up a little bit. And that way it gives it a little extra room to do that without making the cake too domed. Now, one thing I did just notice in AliciaLynn's recipe is she doesn't talk about putting the crumb coating on the top. I'm not exactly sure why. I'm also thinking, now that I'm seeing this, I might have been able to get away with one egg yolk. I was going to try that at first, but I thought it might not be enough. But this is a little wet, but that's fine. We're going to just sprinkle this all over the top to get our nice crumb coating, and just break it up a little bit between your fingers as you're going. I really do think these egg yolks are going to be the key to this now. I'm hoping, because this feels just like a crumb coating I would have normally. But you want to make sure you get that out to the corners, get that spread out as evenly as you can. And then I'm just going to press that crumb coating lightly into the batter. And I do want to wipe off any drips that occurred, because I don't want those to burn while this is baking in the oven. All right, now this is going into a 350-degree oven for 35 to 40 minutes until a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean. So let me get this into the oven and I'll be back. Okay, so there we have it. The topping, as you can see, did not stay in crumbles. When I checked it at about 25 minutes, it had melted. So I think I would go to 1 egg yolk. I think it was having 2 egg yolks that made it melt. It may have done that no matter what with egg yolks, but I think it may have just been a little too wet. I think the flavor is still gonna be fine. Now, as I said, you could use the light butter. That will bump it up by 1 bite or point. It could be worth it if you do want those crumbles. But I have a feeling this might have sunk into it, melted into it, created kind of like a little coating on the top, but we will see. I will let you know right here what we thought of it. Okay, there's too much feedback to give to post just a little banner down below. There are a few things I would change about this. First of all, if you can see, it's very gummy, partly because I believe there are too many blueberries in it. She used 3 cups of diced rhubarb, and I don't know if it's that rhubarb wouldn't be as wet, but typically in researching afterward, 2 cups of blueberries should be sufficient. So I would change this to 2 cups of fruit, especially since these, like blueberries, are more wet. So that's one change I would make. The flavor is really good, but as you saw, the topping didn't really make a crumble topping like I was hoping for, like you would get on a coffee cake. So I'm going to play around with that more. You can just go with the light butter, that's fine. I do want to play around with this more though. I'm thinking that instead of 2 egg yolks, even though I might be able to get away with 1 egg yolk, I'm thinking a whole egg might work. The reason is that the fat in the yolk was perfect for replacing the fat in the butter. But butter also has some water in it, water that will evaporate. And egg yolk has water in it as well. It also has more of a drying quality to it, which is why I didn't use it at first. I was afraid it might get too dry and crisp, and not like in a good crisp, but like that chewy kind of crisp. And it still may, I don't know. But I'm going to test that. But like I said, just go for the regular light butter. Don't worry about trying to play around with the crumble yourself, the topping. I'm going to play around with it more, do some more experimenting, but this is what happens when I am trying out recipes. I have to try a few things. This doesn't work. This is happening, so what do I do to solve that? But just stick with the light butter. The other thing that I would change, I thought it was a little too sweet. In her video, AliciaLynn had her husband try it, and he said it wasn't that sweet. It might be because it was rhubarb and I used blueberries, but blueberries on their own aren't all that sweet either. But I would especially reduce the brown sugar, which seems to be the dominant flavor that I'm getting. So I would reduce that to a 1/2 cup instead of 2/3 and split that 1/4 cup each. I might even reduce the sugar replacement, the granulated, slightly if it's still too sweet, but right now I think just reducing the brown sugar replacement would do it. If I do reduce the sugar replacement, the granulated sugar replacement at all, I would probably bring it down to 3/4 cup, use 1/2 in the cake and a 1/4 cup in the topping. But I will play around more with it. But that's what I'm going to list down below. Those are the changes that I will make. Again, the topping was an experiment. May not work even when I try other things, but I'm going to keep trying it. But just use some light butter. Goes up a bite or a point. It's not that bad. But the flavor was good. I enjoyed it overall. Just a few little tweaks that I need to make to my version, because AliciaLynn's looked fine. So give hers a try if you want, and make adjustments, play around with it, do as you will. Now in her recipe, AliciaLynn doesn't say anything about how long to cool it, but I would cool it to room temperature before cutting into it, because you want that structure to set up and firm up before you cut into it. Otherwise it could fall apart. But I'm not going to make you wait that long. I'm going to give you all of those nutrition facts right now. Now this is going to serve 12 people. And each of those servings, the way I made it here, is going to be 2 Better Balanced Bites or Old Blue Points. I'm on the Healthy Better Balanced plan, which is equivalent to the old WW Blue plan. So that's around where the current plan is. Now AliciaLynn got 3 bites or points for her. She does WW. And that would be fine as well. I was just trying to be as picky as I could about getting those bites and points down. We'll see if it was successful or not. If not, I'll go back to the light butter, but I thought this was worth a try. Now, if you were following calories, the calories for 1 serving of this would be 148. And if you were following macros, the fat would be 2.1 grams. Saturated fat would be 0.6 grams. Protein would be 6.3 grams. Carbs would be 52.6 grams. fiber would be 1.7 grams, and sugars would be 5.4 grams for 1/12 of this cake. Now, I hope that you enjoyed this recipe and this video and being back in the kitchen with me after a couple of weeks. And if you did, I'd appreciate you doing the usual, like, subscribe, comment, share, and hit that notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video, such as this Saturday, the 10th of August. I will be going live at 2 p.m. I have asked people to submit questions. I'm going to do kind of a Q&A. So there's still time if you're watching this on Friday or even Saturday morning to try to get some questions in. You can leave them down below or on the post that I put in the community chat. But that's 2 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, Saturday, August 10th, if you are around for that. Now, since this is not my recipe, it will not be on my blog, but as I said, I will link to AliciaLynn's recipe video down below, and I will put an explanation of the changes I've made and if I would do the egg thing and the crumb coating again. But if you are looking for any of my recipes, I will also link to the blog down there. And there is also my cookbook that you can see back on the counter there. If you haven't picked that up yet, I would appreciate you doing so. It's a great way to support the channel. And speaking of supporting the channel, I also have my 2 stores, my Fourth Wall store and my Zazzle store. Those will be linked below as well. And there you can get things like this apron. There are caps, mugs, t-shirts, calendars, etc. So check out those, and if you can support the channel that way, I would really appreciate it. Also down there is a link to my Amazon storefront. If I've used anything that you are looking for, it may be listed there. Also down there are links to my social media, my Instagram, and a few Facebook groups that I'm part of. So check out that description box for all sorts of information. Now I'm going to patiently wait while this cools, and I hope that it's as good as it smells, because it smells great. So until next time, bye.